Hello again, everyone. This is Zombie Kids Rule, and I'm back with part 2 of the tutorial for how I recreated the Eye of the Beholder character generation process in RPG Maker MZ. I'm not going to do a big intro here. I'm just going to do a couple quick caveats saying that I'm not an expert. I don't claim to be an expert, and I simply want to share things that I have figured out how to do pretty much all through events and usually a couple default plugins that come with MZ, and if it helps people, awesome, right? That's what I'm hoping to give back. So I'm not saying that this is the best way to do anything, and I'm definitely not saying it's the only way to do things, and there might even be plugins that do very similar things, but this is what I invented to recreate the Eye of the Beholder character generation process, just because I was curious if I could do it, and the answer is yes. That it's that right there. So all right. I posted 2 previous videos that actually show you what the recreation looks like. The first video compares it to the Eye of the Beholder, and then the second video just shows a quick update of functionality that I added. Then there's part 1, which basically went through these 2 map events. Okay, the map event that kicks things off, the map event that ends up making the empty character box that you have selected flash, and I went through these 4 common events in the last tutorial. So we're going to jump right back in. I will come back to this back option as a common event. And in the previous tutorial, part 1, I also went through very quickly all the switches that I ended up using and all the variables that I ended up using. And I actually highlighted all the common events. All right, so now you're just like with these CC Box 1, these character selection boxes, the race and gender common events are all very, very, very similar. So once you make one, then you can essentially copy and paste it, and then just change the necessary words like the strings and variables, maybe switches, different variable numbers, things like that. Okay, so let's kick off with this human male. Actually, let me just go back here really quickly and remind what we're talking about on the screen. So if it hurries up, here we go. Okay, so when a player clicks on a box, this is the first option that they get to choose, right? Select race, and they can click one of these, right? And so when they click it once, then it highlights it, and when they click it again, it moves to the next step of the process. Okay, and then this is when the back key becomes active. So 1 click basically highlights what you want to choose, and 2 clicks will advance it. Okay, so that's what the next series of common events are going to allow us to do. Okay, so human male. So when they're on that screen with the select race, and they decide to click on the human male option, it's going to call this common event. All right. So what is this? Common event that changes the text color of the race that the player selects to red. You just saw that. Changes the text color of other race choices to white. Right? Because if you're clicking on different races, the one that you click on turns to red and the other one goes back to white. It updates the player selection if the same race is selected twice. So just like I was saying, you click on it twice. First time it turns it to red. Second time it advances the character generation process. So if it's clicked twice in a row, and then it calls the applicable classes common event. So now this comment is just referencing the race variable numbers. So the races, there's going to be a variable that holds the name of the race, right? The string that says human, elf, right? Half elf. And then there's also a number associated with it. So that's what this comment is reminding. And then this next comment is check to see if the race is already highlighted and is now being selected, right? So being basically means it's being selected a second time in a row. Update the race variable 741 to 744 to the race name for the character box selected, right? Because each one of these has a different variable for the race, because each character you make is going to have a variable to show what race you picked. And it's going to set so this is setting the race variable for, set the variable number 740. Okay? All right. So now, what's it going to do? Well, the first thing it's going to do is it's going to account for if this is the second time that it's been clicked. So I'm going to skip over this in the beginning. So there's a conditional branch that says if human male, this is a switch, is on. Okay, well, it's not going to be on yet because this is the first time it's being clicked, right? So the first time it's being selected. So when this common event is called, it's going to get to this conditional branch and it's going to be a no. The human male switch is not on. So it's going to drop down all the way to here. And this, from here down, is what is doing that functionality of changing the race, name, and gender to red, right? So this bottom portion is what is changing the white text to red, and then the top portion is if you click a second time on the same race and gender, and this common event is called again, then this top portion is what actually sets the race and gender, and then advances you in the character generation process. So I'm going to skip this portion first, and I'm just going to do this portion because that's actually how I built it. I built this part, and then I was like, oh wait, when they click it a second time, it has to have a check up here, to see if it's the second time it's being clicked in a row. So what's happening down here? This is very simple. Show all race options except the current one being selected as white text, right? So these are all repeated. And essentially, this is allowing the all of the race and gender options that are on the screen to go back and forth between red and white as you click them. Okay, so since we're clicking on human male, that on the screen is going to turn red. Everything else has to be displayed in white. And rather than try to do some conditional branch checks of, well, if this one was previously selected, then change it white, I just decided to make them all white. So it's just re-showing the words on the screen, and only one of them was in red, but it's just going to show them all again, because I don't care which one was red before. I just want all of them to be white. So I said it was easier to just redo them all. That's what's happening. So you have each one of these is basically using the text picture plugin, and it's showing what text you want. So you notice it starts with human female because we're selecting human male. That's going to turn red. All of these are going to be turning white, right, or being redisplayed as white. So human male, you have to have your show picture to show the actual text that you put in, and then it just goes right down through. So text picture for elf male, have a different picture, right? Remember the none because you're showing the text. And then elf female, half elf male, all the way down. These are just repeated. You're changing your picture numbers, and you're using the text picture plugin over and over and over again. So it displays all of the words, races and genders on the screen, right? And you have to make sure you pay attention to your X and Y coordinates, right? And then so it's doing all of the non-selected ones, meaning we selected human male. So all of the non-selected ones are being reshown as white text, And then down here is where it's show current race, that means the one that was selected, as red text. It's the same commands, it's text picture, human male, but we're inserting that /C and then the number 18 in brackets. That changes the color of this text to red. And then of course we have our show picture. And you notice these were in order. So human male was first, so picture 11. Human female, right? 12, 13, 14, 15. I just moved this down to the bottom simply because I didn't know if there was going to be a timing problem, so I wanted to show all the white text first. So the previous selection, if there was one, would turn white maybe a fraction of a second as this one was turning red. That's all I did. I didn't want there to be a possibility where two selections would be red at the same time. So I changed all of the non-selected ones to white and then the selected one, human male, to red. Okay? And then this script is that one that I already highlighted about making all of these text pictures, right? Making all of these images selectable. Right, so I already highlighted this. I'm not going to highlight it again. It's the script. It's a for loop, and it's basically setting. It's using that button picture plugin, and it's setting all of these images to be selectable. Then we are turning off all race switches. So all of the switches for all of these races are getting turned off because, again, I don't know which one was previously clicked on. Right? I don't want to figure it out. It's easier just to reset them all. And then it is turning on the one that was selected. So it's turning on human male. Okay? So let's say that for this part of the event, right? So this part of the event, let's say that the player had previously clicked on dwarf male. Well, dwarf male would be red and all the rest would be white. Now they click on human male. Well, this part up here is going to take all of those non-human male choices and make them white, which includes dwarf male. It changes the human male text to red, and then because we reshowed all these pictures, we have to redo the button picture to make them all selectable again. If we didn't do this, then none of these could be selected anymore, right? Because remember I said in part 1 that the only way to get rid of a button picture that you can click on is either erase it or show it again, right? And then it's no longer applicable for the button picture. So once we've reshown these, we have to do that script to make them all selectable. Turn off all the switches because remember dwarf male was on, so I'm turning them all off. So now dwarf male is off, and I'm turning on the human male, which is the one that was clicked on. Now this is important because we clicked on human male once, it runs through here, changes it to red, makes everything clickable, turns the human male switch on. So if I immediately click human male again on the screen as an option, it's going to refire this common event, and the first thing it's going to get to is that conditional branch. If human male switch is on, which it is, then what it needs to do is it needs to figure out, well, which character am I working on, right? Which character am I creating? Which character box am I creating? So if the CC box 1 switch is on, then you're going to set the control variable for CC1 race to the string human male. The next conditional branch, if CC box 2 is on, set the variable CC2 race to human male, and then repeat it. Box 3, CC3 race, human male. Box 4, CC4 race, human male. So whichever character you clicked up here, it's setting the string of the race that you selected so it can be displayed on the screen. Okay? Then this variable is setting the race variable to the appropriate variable for that race. So remember up here, humans are 1, elf 2, half elf 3, and so on. So it's setting the race variable to 1. and then call applicable common event for race classes and then exit the event. So because we clicked on human male, it's calling the common event human classes, which is down here, 357. So call the common event human classes and then exit, get out of this event, because we don't want it to do this part down here. It's basically saying you clicked me once, I turned it red, you clicked me immediately again, and so now I'm going to set my string variable. I'm going to set my variable, the appropriate one, to a string value. I'm going to set my race value, and then I'm going to move forward in the character generation process. I'm going to call the common event for human classes in this case, and then I'm going to exit. Now, all the rest of these for the race and gender are pretty much the same. So human female is going to be almost identical, right? These are pretty much the same. Only now this says conditional if human female switch is on. These conditional branches, CC box 1, CC box 2, those are all the same. And then the variable is just being changed to human female. So again, if you had copied and pasted, all you're changing so far is the switch here and then the strings here, right? This stays the same. This stays the same because it's still calling the human classes. This stays the same. And now when you get down to here, the only thing that's changing is, you notice now it starts with human male, picture 11, and then it skips over human female because that's going to be in red down below. So remember, this section here is turning all that text white. So all of these other ones stay exactly the same. So essentially all I did was, from the human male, I moved the human male from down here, where it was down here and turning red, I moved it up to the top and removed the change color, right? So now it's white. And then I moved the human female down to the bottom. So the last thing it does is it shows the human female option text in red. This is exactly the same because it's the same script setting, making all these clickable. This is exactly the same because you're turning off all the switches. And then this you just update to the appropriate human female switch. And you're done. So now with these two, right, you now have, these two are selectable once and twice to move forward. All the rest of these are pretty much the same. Elf male, right? This stays the same. Change your switch. Change your string, right? But the variables stay the same. Change your string. The race variable is going to change to a 2 because that's what for elf is. The common event, you have to change your common event. It's calling the elf class instead of human. And then down here, you notice that human male is here, human female is here, and then it skips elf male because that gets moved down to the bottom, and it goes right to elf female. So down here, elf male is now at the bottom, and it's changing to red, right? This is the same, and then you change this switch, okay? And so just again, if you're copying and pasting, all you're doing is moving the appropriate one of these to the bottom, and then making sure that the one that's being clicked on is in red, C/C, or whatever color you choose, right? And then the rest of them have no color change. They're all white. Okay? So I'm just going to scroll through these in case you need to stop on them, right? Elf female, same exact thing. Okay? Change your switch. Change your string. This stays the same. This stays the same from elf male. The only thing that changes down here is you move the elf female to the bottom and make sure that you're changing the color. This stays the same. This stays the same. Update your switch to elf female. Half elf male, same concept. Change your switch for the conditional branch. change your string, right? Remember, these are staying the same. CC box 1, those are staying the same. Now, race variable gets changed because half-elves are 3. Common event changes to call the half-elf class. Down here, all we did was move the half-elf male to the bottom and made sure that it's the changing the color, and all these other ones up here are in white. Script stays the same. Turn off all switches stays the same. Update your switch for half-elf male. Half-elf female. See, this part's really easy. This is not bad at all. This stays the same. Update your switch to half-elf female. Update your strings. This stays the same from half-elf male. This stays the same. Just simply move your half-elf female to the bottom. Make sure it's in red. Same. Update your switch. Dwarf male. Change your switch. Change your string. Update your variable, right? Because now the dwarves are a variable value of 4. Update your common event to dwarf classes. Down here, simply make sure you move your dwarf male to the bottom. Your dwarf male is the changing color. Same. Update your switch. Dwarf female. Update your switch. Update your strings. This stays the same. This stays the same. Make sure you move your dwarf female to the bottom. Here it is being changed to red. Same. Change your switch. Gnome male, same thing. Change your switch. Change your string. Update your variable to 5 because that's what gnomes are. Update your common event to gnome classes. Just make sure that you move your gnome male to the bottom. Make sure it's colored red. Same. Turn on the gnome male switch. Gnome female. Update your switch. Update your strings. This stays the same from gnome male. This stays the same from gnome male. Here, just make sure you're moving your gnome female to the bottom. Change the color. Script stays the same. Switches all get turned off. Update your switch for gnome female. Halfling male, these are the last two. So update your switch. Update your string. Change your variable number to 6 because that's what the halflings are. Common event changes to halflings. Down here, you just have to make sure you move your halfling male to the bottom. Make it red, same. Turn on the appropriate switch, halfling male. And finally, halfling female, update your switch. Change your string value for your variable. This stays the same, this stays the same. And then this was already at the bottom, right? You can tell by the picture numbers. So picture 22, this was already at the bottom. Make sure it's turned red. Same script, same turn off all switches. Turn on your halfling female switch. Okay? So again, once you make one of these, it's really easy to copy and paste these, and then the only thing is you got to pay really close attention that you're updating the appropriate switches, string values, variable numbers, and then making sure you don't make any mistakes with the text that's being white versus the text that's being red. Of course, you got to make sure this is correct to begin with, and that sort of thing. Okay, so that's all of the common events for race and gender. Okay, now, depending on what you clicked on, right, if we're on human male, if it gets selected a second time in a row, it calls the human classes. That's the next step in our common events. And you're going to find that the human classes is very similar to the other races, except now we start to get into our restrictions, right? Because humans can only be single class characters. Humans are the only ones who can be paladins, right? So as you copy and paste, for instance, and start changing things, you have to pay attention to, okay, well, what classes are available to humans? What classes are available to elves, half-elves, right? And again, I was recreating this to be very as close to the eye of the beholder rules as could be. All right, so let's talk about these classes, and then we'll go over the individual classes themselves. So when the player clicks on human male, for instance, they click on it the first time. Down here, it changes the text to red, right? And then they click on it a second time, and up here, it does all it needs to do to save the values of things, and then it calls a common event for human classes. The first thing that human classes is going to do is it's going to show all of the class options for humans. Okay, so common event called when the player selects the applicable race and allows the player to select a class for the selected race. Also adds the back button, because once we get here, the player can back up to the race and gender choice. So again, reminding us of the character generation steps, right? And I went over these in from the part 1 tutorial. It sets the step number. So now we are in step 2. We are selecting the actual class, right? So step 1 was race, step 2 is class. It's going to turn on the applicable class switch. So this one is the human classes, so it turns on the switch for human class. So human class is on. We've seen this before. We're going to erase the pictures 10 through 34. And essentially, this is here because, when you back up and such, through this process, whenever you move from screen to screen, it has to erase anything that was on the screen before. And so this is probably too many pictures. There may not even be this many pictures. But what I did was I said, you know what? It doesn't hurt to erase a picture that's not there. So rather than make a mistake, which I did multiple times, because originally I was trying to figure out and say, well, how many pictures are on the screen? So let me just, erase that exact number. And then I would make a mistake. So I just said, you know what? The maximum number of pictures that I used, it starts at 10 and it goes up to 34. In any of these things, it goes up to 34. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to erase them all. And I'm going to make it easy when I copy and paste. So that's what this is doing. There isn't this many. In other words, pictures 10 through 34 are not actually being displayed most likely, but this is just erasing all of them just in case they are being displayed. And I already went over this script. So show class options and make all classes selectable. If there is already okay, now this is one of the things I had to add at the very end. If there is already an evil party member, then Paladin is not an option, right? So if you've already created an evil party member, you can't make a Paladin, okay, according to those old rules. So we have to accommodate that. So first thing that happens, text picture to show the text select class. That's what appears at the top of the screen in blue. Use your picture number to display this text. Then there's a conditional branch. If evil party member switch, this is a switch, if evil party member switch is on, then do this. Show these class options. Else, meaning that evil party member switch is off, then show these choices. Okay? And then there's a final thing that it does. So we use our conditional branch to figure out, is there an evil party member already in the party? So if evil party member switches on, then you're going to use your text picture and the show picture command, and then the separate plugin command button picture. So instead of using the script down here that sets all the button pictures, makes them all selectable, instead here it's the command, the plugin command is being inserted after each clickable option. Okay, it just makes it easier this way. So fighter, and then make that selectable, right? So fighter, picture 11, and then button picture 11, and then call common event 363. 363 is fighter, so that's right. Show ranger, right? 13, 13, 365. 365. You notice it skips over paladin because there's an evil party member, so paladin isn't even being listed. Then it does the same thing, and you notice that I skipped picture numbers, right? Because normally paladin would be in here as picture 12. Well, it's not an option here, so I'm just skipping over it. Do the same thing for cleric, 366, cleric. Mage, 15, 15, 367, mage. Thief, right? 16, 16, 368, 368. So if there's an evil party member, if that switches on, it's going to show these as text choices, right? As selectable choices for the player, because we're under the human classes. The else branch, meaning that evil party member switch is off. So there is no evil party member. Well, these are all the same, except that after fighter comes paladin, right? So fighter, paladin, ranger, cleric, mage, thief. Now, here is something that's very important that you could make a mistake on. If you notice up here, actually, this is the full choices, right? So if the switch is off, these are the full choices. You'll notice that fighter, that text is being displayed at the 150 Y coordinate. Paladin 180, Ranger 210, right? So basically, the way when I was manipulating this, it was going up by 30. Okay, that wouldn't be the same for you. It all depends on the size of the pictures you use. But for me, it was going up by 30 pixels for the Y coordinates, right? X coordinates, Y coordinates. 150, 180, 210, 240, 270, 300. And I'll just highlight this. Fighter, 150. Ranger, 210, because Paladin is 180. When you go up here, well, wait a second, we moved Paladin. So Fighter is still 150. But now Ranger, instead of being 210, well, Ranger has to take the place of Paladin. So now it's 180. And then Cleric would have been 240, but it has to take the place of where Ranger was down here. So now it's 210. So the only thing I'm pointing out to you is that when you have to remove options, you need to make sure that you're double checking your, not necessarily your X coordinates because they're staying the same, but the Y coordinates, which is what's moving it down the screen, right? You have to double check. Otherwise, you would have a gap. If I didn't change these Y coordinates, it would be fighter, skip a space, ranger, cleric. And I didn't want that, right? I want it to just be one list. So I needed to call that to your attention to make that clear. So once you have these, then basically all those choices are selectable. Then it's going to show back button and make it selectable. So down in the corner of the screen, it displays a blank button, right? And then uses text picture to show the text back, and then uses the button picture plugin to make that button selectable. And you'll notice here that the picture number I used for the button picture plugin is 98. That's the entire blank button, right? Instead of just the text. So instead of just the text back, which is in the middle of the button, I didn't use picture 99. I used picture 98, which is under 99. So, and here's another thing to point out. If I swap these, if I put the play button as picture 99 and the back text as 98, the play button is going to be on top of the back button, and you're not going to be able to see the words. So the way this is it shows the play blank button. It's just the thing I named it, right? So it shows a blank button, and then on top of that, it shows the text back. Okay? So just to make sure that's clear. And then everything else you just have to play with as far as the size and whatever you're using for an asset, the X and Y, etc., etc. So now that's it for that event, and the rest is going to be very, very similar. It's just going to be different class choices available. Okay, so I'm going to walk through another one, and then the rest you'll just see are different choices. So elf. This top part is the same. The variable number, it's still step 2. You have to change your switch to elf class, right? Because it's not human class, it's elf class. It's erasing the same pictures, right? And then all of these are just the classes that the elf can pick. Now, you'll notice that there's no conditional branch that says if evil party member is on. Why? Because elves can't be paladins. So that's not needed. You don't need that conditional branch. So it's just going to be from here, this one shows the select class text, and then all the rest of these are just the classes that are available to elves. So they can be fighters, and then you got to make fighter selectable. They can be rangers, make it selectable. They can be clerics, make it selectable. They can be mages, make it selectable. Thief, make it selectable. So these are very similar to the human classes. Oh, but now they can be a fighter mage. And then, so you have to make that selectable. You notice 370? 370, fighter mage. Oh, they can't be fighter clerics. It skipped over that one. They can be fighter thieves. Make that selectable. 371. Oh, there it is, 371, fighter thief. They can be fighter mage thief. 373. There you go, fighter mage thief. They can be a mage thief. Make it selectable. 377, mage thief. Okay? And that's it. So essentially, you're just using text picture to show the text, the word that you want them to be able to click, and the show picture to make the text appear on the screen, and then the button picture command to make that word selectable. And it's just the choices that are available to elves. Okay? So again, simply because you don't have to look these up, right? I don't want you to have to look these up. Fighter, ranger, cleric, mage, thief, fighter mage, fighter thief, fighter mage thief, mage thief. Okay, and if you're trying to recreate this exactly, you may have to just take some notes, right? Or again, pause this as you're doing it. Or if you're just watching this for the concept, that's fine too. So after it shows that, then this is the same as it was for human classes. Show back button and make it selectable. So show the button, show the text back, make it selectable. This common event 340. Well, that's up here. Back option 340. Okay? All right. So I'm not going to cover the back option yet. I am going to finish up these classes just so you can see them, and it's all the same. You just got to make sure that you're changing your Y pixels to make sure that the words, the classes that you're setting up, show in the right spot. So if you decide to copy and paste, and then you're just changing, like for instance the text, and you're changing the button picture common events, that's fine, you can do that, but just make sure that you're paying really close attention to where your pictures are showing. Okay? All right. So half elf classes. This was all the same. This was the same. Update your switch. This was the same. And then what classes can a half elf be? All right, well, they can be a fighter, a ranger, a cleric, mage, thief, fighter cleric, fighter mage, fighter thief, fighter cleric mage, Fighter Mage Thief, Cleric Ranger, Cleric Mage, Mage Thief. So they can be all those. So that's by far the most choices that any race has. And then this is just the back button, so this stays the same, right? You can copy and paste that without any danger. Okay? Dwarf classes. The dwarves have far less classes. So this stays the same, your step number stays the same, update your switch for dwarf class, erase picture stays the same, and then this just gets updated with the permissible classes for dwarves. What can they be? Fighter, Cleric, Thief, Fighter Cleric, Fighter Thief. That's it. That's the only classes they can be. And then this stays the same. Okay? And again, so just make sure that you're double checking, if you're recreating this, double checking your picture placement. Gnome classes. This stays the same. Step number, change your switch, erase picture stays the same. Just update these. They can be a fighter, so pretty much this is staying consistent. That's great. They can be a cleric. They can be a thief, a fighter cleric, a fighter thief, and a cleric thief. Okay? Then the buttons, the back button stays the same. And then finally, halflings. This stays the same. Step number is the same. Switch changes to halfling class. This erase picture stays the same. And then this is just being updated with the permissible classes, and making sure you're paying attention to your picture numbers, your coordinates, and then of course your button pictures. Make sure everything matches. Fighter, Cleric, Thief, and Fighter Thief. That's it. That's all halflings can be. And then your back button. Okay? All right. So these are really long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end part 2 here, and when I will record part 3, and it will go into these class options, because these are little longer events, right? So the events are a lot longer for the classes. So I'll start covering those in part 3. And you'll see again, it's a lot of repeated information just to get through that. Okay? All right. Well, again, this is part 2. This has taken us through choosing a race and gender, and then doing the initial selection of the classes. Right? This is basically showing the classes that are available for each race. And then once we get down here, these events, each of the classes, they're going to behave very similar to when we clicked on a race. There's going to be a part of the event that changes the text red when you click on it once. And then there's going to be and turns all the other ones white, and then there's going to be a part of the event that says, oh, you clicked on me twice, you must want to pick me, so I'm going to do something and then move to the next part of the character generation process. Okay, so the concept of how these are structured is the same, but there's a little bit more to them. There's a little bit more you'll see it when we get there. There's a little bit more nuance to it than some of these other ones. Okay? All right. Well, I hope this is helpful. Again, if you're deciding to actually go through and recreate this, I hope I'm explaining this clearly enough. If not, you can feel free to leave a comment and I'll try to clarify. If you find these videos helpful, please consider liking, subscribing, getting notifications, and leaving comments. And I will, after I post this, I'll start working on the part 3. and see if we can get through the race selection, or I'm sorry, the class selection, and then get into the alignments, and then some of the more meatier stuff of getting the attributes and all these other functionality options. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, folks, for watching. I hope this is helpful to somebody. And I hope you're having a great new year. And until the next video, happy gaming, happy game developing. Good luck on your projects, and I will talk to everybody later. Bye.